Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Nice to welcome you back in the classroom management with Miss Fatimah. In this video, Miss Fatimah will share you a good topic about building positive teacher-student relationship, and we focus on patterns of interactions in the class. And in this video, I will explain you some important points. The first is definitions of classroom interactions. The second, aspects of classroom interactions. The third is categories of classroom interactions. The fourth, the patterns of interactions. And then the last, I will tell you the roles of teachers and learners in the class. Before I share the definitions of classroom interactions, I would like to say that classroom is an important place for teachers and students because all process of teaching and learning almost exists in a classroom. And then the main important part in the classroom is interaction. When we talk about interactions, what is interactions? Do you know about it? Okay, I will tell you. Actually, the terms of interaction can be defined as the participations of teachers and students in the process of teaching and learning. And then the interactions may take place not only for doing educational learning activities, but also for doing another activities such as joking, sharing stories, or socializing with each other. And according to Brown 2000, interactions is the collaborative exchange of thoughts, feelings, or ideas between two or more people, resulting in reciprocal effect on each other. And then interactions happen not only from one side, but also from at least two people who give and receive message in order to achieve communicative process. So, it can be said that interactions has an important role in the teaching and learning process because the successful interactions may promote involvement or engagement between teacher and students or among students. And then, it also enhances learning and motivate the student to learn in the class. Alright, just now, I mentioned the definitions of interactions. What about classroom interactions? Yes, according to Richard and Smith 2010, classroom interactions is the patterns of verbal and non-verbal communications and the types of social relationship which occur within classroom. And then it is also defined as two-way communication process between teacher and students or among students in the teaching and learning process. From the definitions of classroom interactions itself, you see that there are two terms, verbal and non-verbal communications. Can you guess what they are? Okay, let me tell you about this term one by one. We start from verbal communication, or well known as verbal interaction. Generally, verbal interactions covers written interactions and oral interactions. What is written interactions? It is the style of interactions in which students write out their ideas and thoughts through written words, documents, and another in order to interact with others. What about oral interactions? Actually, oral interactions implies that students interact with others by speaking in front of class or asking questions, answering questions, making comments, and taking part in class discussions or group discussions. So once again, I remind you that verbal interactions include written and oral interactions. Next, I will tell you about non-verbal interaction. What is it? Here, non-verbal interactions refers to behavioral responses in classroom without using words, such as head nodding, like this, and then hand raising, and then you use eye contact, or you make body gesture, or another non-verbal interaction style. So it is suggested that you as the teacher in the future should use both verbal and non-verbal language because they may facilitate the interactions process between teacher and students in the classroom. Alright, now we come to the next section. It is about the aspects of classroom interaction. Based on Sari 2015, there are two aspects in classroom interaction. The first, negotiations of meaning, and the second is feedback. Okay, if both of these aspects are not available in your classroom, the process of teaching and learning will not be successful. Now, I will tell you what are negotiations of meaning and feedback. We start from negotiations of meaning. Actually, negotiations of meaning is the verbal exchanges that occur when the speakers seek to prevent breakdown of the communications. And then the opportunities of meaning negotiations help the language learners in three main ways. Okay? Three main ways. And then the first, it helps learners to get comprehensible input, that is to say, it facilitates comprehension. And then the second, negotiations of meaning provides learner with feedback on how to use the second language, it is English. For example, teacher very often corrects students' mistakes when they negotiate so that they use the second language accurately. And then finally, or the last, negotiations of meaning encourage learners to adjust, manipulate, and modify their personal output because a successful negotiations happen when learners produce outputs that are comprehensible and therefore target-like. What about feedback? Xiaohu 2010 define feedback as the response given by the teacher to efforts by learner to communicate, which include the notions of error correction, It also refers to the informative responses to what learner says, for example, by giving smiling or clarifying the questions to the student. Next, you will see the categories of classroom interactions. According to the Garin 2004, there are 4 categories of classroom interaction. They are teacher-learner, one teacher to one learner. The second, teacher-learners, one teacher to many learners. And then the third, learner with learner, one learner with one learner. And then the last, learners with learners. Okay, let's discuss this category one by one. We start from teacher and learner. Okay, and these interactions or the interactions of teacher and learner is happen or conducted when the teacher refers to the whole class, but the teacher expects only one student to answer the question. And then it is often used for evaluations of individual students, and it can also be used for informal conversations at the beginnings of the lesson or for leading students into a less guided activity. And then the second category is it is teacher with learners. Now, in this category, the interactions of teacher-learners is established when a teacher talks to the whole class at the same time. And teacher takes a role of a leader or controller and decides about the type and process of the activity in the class. And then the primary functions of these interactions is control, practicing of certain language structures or vocabulary, and mostly teacher and learners are informal repeating structures after teacher, and this type of practice is also referred to as a drill. And then the third category is learner-learner, And then the interactions of learner-learner is called pairwork. The student here get an assignment which they have to finish in pairs, and then the teacher holds the roles of an advisor. Here, teacher only helps students when it is necessary. And after the activity, teacher puts the pairs into the whole group, and each pair reports on their work. And then the last category is learners. And then this category is also called as group work. As with pairwork, the teacher's functions here is that of an advisor, and individual groups report on their work as a follow-up activity. Now, I will explain the patterns of interaction. Here, the patterns or the terms patterns of interaction includes all sequence of activities used by the teachers and students when information is being transmitted during teaching and learning process. According to Pairwork to 1996, there are 10 patterns of interactions that can be used by you as the teacher for your process of teaching and learning. Okay, let's discuss it one by one. The first, it is group work patterns. In this kind of patterns, students work in small group on tasks that entail interactions by conveying or giving information or doing group decision making. So it is group work patterns. And the second, it is individual work. And this kind of patterns shows that the teacher gives a task or assignment or set of tasks, and then the students work on them independently. Here, the teachers only monitor and help them when it is necessary. The third, it is close-ended teacher questioning, or well known as IRF, initiation, response, and feedback. And this pattern exists when a teacher initiates to ask a question to the student, and then student give response toward the questions. And after that, the teacher gives feedback toward students' response. For example, the teacher asks a learner about the rules of use of the present perfect, and then the learners give an answer, and then the teacher says whether that is correct or not. And then the fourth, it is choral responses. And this pattern exists when a teacher gives a drill activity and then all students repeat them together. For example, when the teacher mentions one sentence, "We learn English effectively," and then the students will repeat them similarly. And then the students will say, "We learn English effectively," like that. It is choral responses. And then the next is collaborations patterns. In these patterns, students do the same sorts of tasks as in individual work, but they work together with their friends, usually in pairs. They try to achieve the best results they can. And then the sixth, it has students initiates and teacher answers pattern. And this pattern shows that the student initiate to ask questions and the teacher answer it directly. And then the seventh, it is full class interaction pattern. Okay, the students here debate a topic or do a language task as a class. And then the teacher may intervene occasionally to stimulate participations or just to monitor the activity. And then the next pattern is teacher talk, or well known as lecture. Okay, and this pattern may involve some kinds of silent students' response, such as writing from the teacher's explanations, But there is no initiative on the part of the students to ask the questions, because in this pattern, the teachers only give lecture and minimize the students' opportunity to ask the question. And then the next, it is self-assessed pattern, in which students choose their own learning tasks and work autonomously. And then the last pattern is open-ended teacher questioning. Okay, here there are a number of possible right answers so that more students answer each cue. Alright, in this section, we will discuss the last discussions about the roles of teacher and learner in the class. First, you will listen what type of teacher may exist during teaching and learning process. According to Brown 2000 and Dagarin 2004, teacher can play many roles in the teaching and learning process as the controller, director, manager, facilitator, and resource. Teachers also have a role as general overseer who coordinates the learning activities. Besides that, teacher also plays a role as language instructor who presents new language, controls, evaluates, and corrects students' performance. If someday you become a teacher, or you are a teacher in the future, you may choose which types they are suitable with your needs or your teaching style. Besides teacher, learners also play important role in classroom. They involve and interact with students and teachers, they participate in classroom discussions, and they act in a receptive manner. With changing times, the roles of learners in education has got subverted from a facilitator to a task monitor. They collect materials for learning and assignment. They can collect it through browsing the internet or another, and then they can check on their study times, put back materials at their respective places after using them, and many more. Developing excellent communication skills, being friendly and polite, and making practical applications of what students learn are some of the major roles that students play as learners in education. In addition, when students are engaged in direct classroom activities, they will learn better. And then the students who are active in classroom through taking turns may develop their language. Meanwhile, those who are passive in classroom will have less opportunity to learn language. So it is clear that the active roles between teachers and students in the class is very needed to create a good interactions in the classroom. They should actively engage in the communication event or interactions in the classroom. Therefore, the quality of teaching and learning process in the classroom is mainly determined by teachers and students in how they interact with each other actively. Well, I think that's all important points that I can share to you. Just now, I have explained 5 points. I have explained the definitions of classroom interactions, aspects of classroom interactions, categories of classroom interactions, and I also explained about the patterns of interactions and the roles of teachers and learners in the class. I hope you can understand these materials well, and you also may enrich your knowledge by reading another relevant journals, articles, or ebook about classroom interaction. Alright. See you on the next video. Thank you for watching. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Have a good learning.